Started the special meeting. So let's stand and we'll say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We don't have a huge agenda, but there are some very good topics here. So part of tonight, it's the first time that the board's had the draft law since last, I believe it was Thursday. It's on our website so people can look at it. And this is just a draft, the first version of this. We know it's gonna need a few more revisions without a doubt. So everybody on the board, mark it up. I've been marking mine up. Mike been marking his up. So as you're reading through it, mark it up. If you got questions, mark it, bring it to our attention. And so we can get this wrapped up. And there's, like they're saying, it's a lot of good reading, but it's tough reading. Yeah, it's a lot of tough reading. And one of the biggest things that I picked up on, one of the things is it says the Town of Homer Fire Department. Well, the Town of Homer does not have a fire department. It's the district, the district fire department, because Homer Fire District is what it's gotta be called. So we made a note of that, and we've gotta change some of that stuff. So as you're going through this and you see stuff like that, mark it, let us know. Mike's marked up a bunch, I've marked up, I actually did another draft. And I'll send out to people that's got red and lines through it that, it's gonna take some work to get it there, and it's a great first effort. Mike, you wanna talk about it any?
Sure. So, Mike and I have been discussing this, and this is the draft that we started a year ago in May. Mike and Kevin and I, and Kevin and I have been on the task force with the Cortland County Planning Department to put this together. So we finally got what we have in our hands here, and Mike and I had a discussion a couple days ago about the fact that if we stuck to this thing, the planning board would become full-time employees of the town, because there's a whole lot of things in here that point right to the planning board to address, and so going through it, I found a lot of places where it's not really, it should be his job, he's the one that gets paid, I don't. But, and to start with, like on page 6, they talked about preserving mineral soil groups 1 through 4. I've got maps I'm gonna find out to people. We've been talking, we've always preserved 1 through 4, but we have been talking about preserving 1 through 5. And just to give you an idea, 1 through 5 in the town of Homer encompasses 9,800 acres. All right, the remaining 6 through 10 is 21,000. So it's not like we're not leaving plenty of land for solar, because a lot of these larger farms are having to take advantage of those soils up on the tops of the hills and they're productive. Get manure on them, and you can grow stuff, and we need them for CAFO plans, need them to feed a dairy. So I just have a few more of these maps.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, give one over there.
All right.
Mike, are those USDA classifications? Or are they New York?
Those are New York.
New York.
But USDA uses the same ones. The
Okay.
USDA recommends going through 5.
Okay.
So I got 3 more. I got 3 more, you guys. You might just.
Pass one out there if they want it. Well, we can make more copies if we need.
What did you give my?
Here.
Send it over.
Pilgrim does not qualify. That's the bailing. We don't want any of that.
So anyway, you can see that.
We look at it, we drive by it.
The point being that we're still leaving 21,000 acres that could have solar on it by protecting mineral groups through 5 instead of 4. And that is what's recommended by the USDA, even though New York State Ag and Markets suggest 1 through 4. So, but going through it just quickly, I'll just mention a few things that I found where the planning board, things such as, the days that have to be, no less than 60 days before the date that the applicant files the application, the applicant shall contact the town former building code department, and it just says this should be overseen by the Homer Town Planning Board. That's not our job, that's his job. So there's just a lot of things like that in there. There are places, like on page 12, the vegetation management plan should be submitted and approved by the Homer Town Planning Board. That's a soil and water thing. So, I mean, our developers are gonna have to pay soil and water, and so that's the kind of thing that they're experts in. Planning boards are not an expert in anything like that, so, and there's other spots too, screening, you know, it says the planning board is welcome to go out and look at the screening vegetation and like that, or at least look at what's recommended. And that's really, here again, it's a soil and water thing. So when I got all through it, the whole part about forest consulting and the planning board should go out and look at that. I think here again, we could get someone like a consultant from Florcon or someplace like that the developer has to pay to take care of. I mean, let's use the experts on this stuff. And so by the time I got all done with it and went through the 43 pages of this thing, and assigned those specific jobs to the people who are best at doing it, really the planning board is back in a comfortable situation where we just, you know, recommend and things like that. And we're not ones that are going out and saying, plant this here, why did you plant that there? So anyway, just briefly, that's how I marked mine up. As the chair of the planning board, looking to see, you know, where can we take the load off the planning board where they really shouldn't be making decisions. They should be making decisions by recommendations of the people who know this stuff. So that's roughly what I've done here. And like Mike said, you may all want to do the same thing and find other things that I guess I was just looking at it from the standpoint of the chair. So.
Mike, what's the size of the solar that this will pertain to? What's the wattage or the whatever that this will pertain to for the town?
Well, so this would be up through 24 megawatts. We have control over. You get to 25 and bigger, then the state will. They can whine to the state. The state will take over and tell us how it's going to be. So, like, you know, the one up on Halton Hill is 5.
That's a 5 megawatt.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It will be if it did.
Started out bigger than this one, didn't it?
They wanted to do 15, but they didn't do their homework and discovered once they had bought the land that the 3-phase lines that I paid for is by Scott couldn't even handle 5. So they bought 216 acres and they can use 35.
But there are parts of this in here that will affect the bigger ones too, that they talked about a little bit. Your roads and different things, and like Mike said, ORAS, I guess that's what they call it, kind of supersedes pretty much everything we did, and the authority that we have on the local level. But there might be some other workarounds that we still got to explore on that, where we can have some teeth on that. So that's a different discussion. But so the county planning department has been working on this along with you, Mike, and your guys. We're trying to, if my understanding was right, they're trying to make a county-wide universal law, so all the towns will have the same.
But they can't do that.
Okay, they
because
can't.
Towns are sovereign. So the idea is to come up with a model that towns can adopt and make their
Yeah,
own changes
right.
to suit
Okay.
them. You know, we got towns like, you know, Willett and Lapeer that have no law, and that's the first place that these solar guys are going to go to when they already have very first 2 in Cortland County. One was in Willett and one was in Lapeer.
Okay.
They don't have any zoning, and so they just, these solar guys know it. So that's where they go.
So my suggestion, everybody read it, mark it up. If you can scan it or whatever, if you can't scan it, get it back to the town hall. We'll scan it and we'll get it back to Mike and Trish at the planning department so that they can start reviewing it again.
Start plugging stuff in, changes that we want.
Yeah, so I mean, this is gonna be a work in progress. I've gotta look up and see when our moratorium was supposed to come off, and we gotta research a little bit. We may have to extend it, but I don't know what's legal and what's not legal to do that. So we'll have to look at that, because let's get it as close as we can to the best document we can do and not rush it so in 2 weeks from now, when we have our next board meeting, we can talk about it some more. So, within 2 weeks, see if you guys can get through it and see what you guys mark up and come back with, and we'll scan it and get it back to everybody. Then you get your copy back. And as they're updating them, we'll get new copies out. So and even people in the audience, I mean, if you look on our website, you can download it, read it. If you got questions, send them in to us. This affects our whole community. So let's see if we can get the questions answered and looked at and make sure we're doing it correctly as we possibly can. Kevin, anything you want to say about this?
Just the discussion you and I had earlier today. I want the town, when they're going through this, to think of it as a living document that's subject to change. Just because of what I'm involved with Cortlandville. We're learning new stuff with 8 or 9 solar fields currently up and running and 8 or 9 more on my desk. Items such as the noise factor. And between myself and Adam Brown, the deputy there, he does a lot of good research on that. We just came across one from a complaint the other day, one of the solar fields, where the noise level, the contract that was put together and accepted by the Cortlandville Planning Board, and the noise level that the developers used was basically a statewide regulation. But what we're learning is that noise ambient level could stand to be adjusted down lower when they're going right in somebody's backyard, because if you're ever around these solar fields and you hear when the inverters are all running, it's certainly noticeable. It's not extreme, but it's noticeable. So we need to keep stuff like that in mind. We haven't adopted anything in Cortlandville yet. It's something new that we just brought to put in front of the town board. But those kinds of regulations, need to be looked at real hard. The other thing that I would impress upon everyone is to make sure that you have, as a town, good private engineering to back you up as far as helping with the studies and understanding these systems. Real quick note, the press is probably here, but we just put a stop work order on one of the newer solar fields that's under production because they're not following the agreement that they had with the town. So it takes a lot of oversight to keep track of these guys. And I've issued a few different stop works to these solar companies over the years because they either didn't pay attention to the site plan, and they didn't do the plantings, or they didn't do the shielding right, or they didn't do the mowing and the lawn care correctly. So it's important to have these rules down, but it's just as important to have some professional help with the towns to make sure stuff's getting looked at correctly.
Is that decibel level that you would recommend in this?
No, this is hot off the press, Brandon. So the decibel level right now statewide, Dan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's either 60 or 65 decibels is when a state regulation is going to kick in. We've looked into for help from DEC, from EPA, from the state, with the help of the true definitions of these things. What's ambient noise? The fact is, it was solar fields. It's supposed to be measured at the fence line. Okay. What we're finding is that the 60 or 65, whichever the number is, that Cortlandville's been using, along with everybody else for the most part, is a little on the louder side for people where their property backs immediately up to the solar field. So I've been dealing with noise complaints ever since Dutchess first started putting in their 5 different solar fields, and one over on East River Road in particular. And then again, the maintenance thing is important because everybody's putting in these tilt access solar arrays for the tracking. That's a lot of moving parts. You start putting the pivot on a pipe that's gonna cover 40 acres or whatever, so maintenance is huge. And so holding their feet to the fire for that sort of thing is definitely important.
So just the inverters, when the sun is shining, they're making the noise, the vibration?
Yep, basically when they're in operation during the day, and inverters do.
Yeah, I guess most people won't even think about it, I mean, if you're not around them.
Well, but here's the catch, is the inverters themselves only emit so many decibels. But when you put 100 of these inverters in a given area, I'm no mathematician on that part. I don't even know how that calculates, but I can tell you it's more than a single inverter. So it's something to pay attention to, just to keep the neighbors, keep everybody in mind, so to
It's good
speak.
information to have, yeah.
So, but we're learning. We're, like I say, we've got 8 or 9 in production right now, and we've got another at least 7 or 8 more. One's being built right now over that floating one over at Suco. It's the one that's currently under construction. And then I've got one on Locust Ave and another one up on Riley Road that are right at the edge of pulling a permit. So we're learning as we go.
Do you think the decibel level is gonna become a state? Because if on the big ones, if we say we want a certain decibel level, ORA's gonna say, well, too bad.
So just my personal take on that, the state's not gonna really pay a whole lot of attention to it because the state's pushing so hard to get all these solar farms put in. I don't know whether they'll listen. That's up the political ladder that I don't climb. So,
I understand.
yeah. But just know that, again, it's treated as a living document because this needs to be visited and revisited. If not annually, then whenever a new one's gonna be built, see what the problems have been with the last ones and try to address them from there.
Boards, any comments, questions you wanna ask?
Just a quick question. When you guys know all the numbers and the acreage and everything, do we expect to reach a saturation point where we'll have enough, too much, or anything, or is this just a straight shot until every piece of land is taken off? Will we reach a saturation point
As far as
on solar? Taking solar?
being everywhere,
Being
I
everywhere.
think.
Okay.
Well, the biggest limiting factor is infrastructure. It has to be where it can hook onto 3 phases. So that's quite limiting. And that's one of the things that I'm actually giving a PowerPoint presentation to the state comptroller in 2 weeks on this very subject. And that's one of the things where New York State is just not looking at where the real issue is. And that is improve our infrastructure, just like the lines up my road. That company wanted to put 15, they bought land enough. And for the most part, except for the one L-shaped piece that they're putting it on, which is the only piece of number 5
I saw
mineral
that.
soil group on it. The rest is all 6, 7, where it might as well be, but they couldn't do it because those lines are not heavy enough to accept it. So this is gonna be the limiting factor, is our power lines can or cannot take it.
The reality, Kevin, is that according to the science at this point in time, they could put every bit of acreage that was available under solar and still not get to 0 net as far as the way these things work.
Yeah.
So
Well, the efficiency's just not there.
it's not.
Do you hear any information about upgrading the power so that we can concentrate it more or allow other acreage, off? Nobody's even touching that.
And I've had meetings with, Jeff Gallahan, but he's not running again. I've had meetings with Anna Callis, I've had meetings with Senator Webb, just on this very subject, and nobody seems to.
Kevin, you gotta start hanging out with Mike more. He's up the food chain quite high here.
I know he is,
Thank you. Okay.
trust me. I know.
Well, this will be a good one. You can bring up the decimal level. I'm sorry, Kevin.
No, I just was trying to see where we're going with
I
this.
thought that's why our electric went to 19 cents a kilowatt.
Yeah.
We're all getting new lines. That's
Yeah,
not what's
see,
happening.
yeah.
That's
Darn.
the plan. To help build infrastructure.
Victor, would you like to say anything? I know you studied this quite a lot.
I said to you, I was just gonna be silent.
Okay, that's fine then.
But Kevin, so here's what I do. I use AI at the deepest level to ask these questions, and I actually asked that question, okay? And what I got back is, for about 10 more years, we can keep raising at the current rate. Now, that doesn't have to do with the transmission lines, which is a big, big issue. But as far as space goes, and getting to net zero or net whatever, we're good for 10 more years at this rate, just approximately. But the transmission lines, there's the last law that they put in, has a special section to speed up transmission lines. But it's been out for 2 years and I haven't seen any speeding up yet. So I agree with Mike that we can't put them in without a lot more transmission. And I agree with Sarah, that's what the money is supposed to go to. So here's my prediction: increased electrical rates every time they can get it, because transmission's really expensive. Does that answer some of your questions?
Not with bad news like that. Any other questions from the board? Anybody for comments? Okay, so everybody good with that? So within the next couple of weeks, please try to read it, get your comments, and like I said, if you can't scan them and send them to me, bring them down, the clerks can, Brooke and stuff will scan them, and then we'll get them to Mike and the planning board so that they can review what our thoughts were. Thanks, Mike, for the effort on that. So the next one is a lot size adjustment.
Mike, I'd like to comment on that, because I have to go.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Mike.
When the opportunity to talk about it. So, I got on this planning board in 1978. I might have been 48. When I got on, the building lot size was 3/4 of an acre as far as a private well or private septic system. Anywhere else. And then in the, I believe it was 1992, that, this is when Joe Armidio came before the board and wanted to develop what we grew up with, was the Spencer Chicken Farm, right across from where your first house was, right? And came to us with a plan, that we couldn't stop because he'd already made application. And there was going to be, on roughly 28 acres, there was going to be another almost 40 lots. And so the planning board thought, we're getting an awful lot of lots over the sole source aquifer. So we couldn't stop that one, but we decided at that point in time we need to make larger lots over area 2. Area 1 is just around the wellhead, so we wouldn't let anybody go there. But area 2 is these valleys, Route 11, Route 41, and that was why we decided to go to 2 acres there, but leave all the rest of the hills and everything else, area 3, 4, whatever, at 3/4 of an acre. So it stayed that way for a while until, I don't know, probably another 8-10 years, and then that's when the county came out with this 2.4 everywhere. So I agree with Mike that we need to be thinking of smaller lots, because people have to buy 2.4 and then they take care of the 0.7 around their house and the rest goes up the weeds, and it's ridiculous. To me, it's sprawl without growth. So I think we need to think about smaller building lots, but I also think we also need to keep in mind about protecting the aquifer. And I want to just give one example. So from 1997 until 2023, I ran a water sampling project with Cornell University where we pulled samples out of 5 wells down through Route 41. The first one being at the very head of the aquifer, just past the Scott line, and then 3 more spaced out fairly evenly. Those were all private homes, people who let me take the samples. And then the last one, the 5th one, was the village well, right down here on Hudson Street. And our purpose was to monitor our agronomic practices, see if we followed our CAPO plan, how were the nitrates in the wells going to look as we progressed. And I pulled those samples every 3 months for, whatever that is, 26 years. And what we saw, ultimately, the one that we concentrated on was the village well because that's the aquifer runs in that direction. It's considered a relatively fast aquifer. My study and the people that I talked to who know this stuff said it runs 4 feet per day, whatever. I don't know who's down in there measuring, but what we did find, interestingly enough, was there was a well, it was actually in the house where he and I grew up in at the old home farm, which is just south, just downstream, so to speak, of Anderson Drive, where we've got 52 homes on about 28 acres. And that well, although it was never bad, we're talking in the 14 to 16 parts per million of nitrates, given that 44 parts per million is below that is good, above that is cautionary, 100 parts per million, you should not even be near that water. So the village well, which is what we concentrated on because that's where everybody's getting their water from for the most part, started out at 16 parts per million in the very first few samples in 97. By 2021, it was down to 9 parts per million on a straight line decline. So we felt pretty good about that following our CAPO plan, that it really works, that we were able to bring the nitrates down in all of the wells except that one. And we could, and the only thing I could think of to explain that is because we're just downrange from, we're only a quarter of a mile from that whole Anderson Drive complex and Limerick Lane right across the street from it. So I may be totally wrong. I don't know, but I don't know how else to explain it. So it raises concerns to me as a planner and someone concerned about groundwater that we maybe not go to 1 acre over the aquifer. I don't know that 2.4 is necessary, but I think maybe somewhere there's some middle ground. As far as the hills go, you have to go back to 1 acre. That's what I think. So there you have it from your chairman of your planning board.
What size, go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you think it's just the septic systems or the septic systems combined with the fact that like maybe some of those properties are hiring lawn care, fertilizer, stuff like that?
Well,
They're smaller yards so that bigger yards don't usually do that.
it's probably a combination. Because True Green and all those things, they're all over you see them all over the place, and I would suspect it's a combination because back when most of those houses, in fact, I think all of those houses on the Anderson Drive, Alfred Lane area were all dry wells. That was before the health department said no more dry wells. So if you're right over that gravel, it just disappears. So let's do it that way. And I think probably the majority in my mind is probably from that, but I suspect, I know just like, around Skinny Alice Lake, that chairman of that district too, but we had, the HABs, the harmful algal blooms, and people want to point the finger first at farms. And so when we were working with the Lake Association, which is all the high dollar property owners around the lake, and when I say we, I'm talking about the Skaneateles Lake Ag Protection Program, that we would offer to take, would they allow us, if they would allow us to come onto their lawns and take soil samples. We asked 250 homeowners around the lake that we would cover the cost for everything, and then we would sit down with them and go through the samples afterwards. How many do you suppose took us up on that?
Probably not very many.
One, yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of that lawn chemical stuff going on, and, you know, everybody wants their lawn greener than the next door neighbors, and so they pile on the nitrogen. So I think it's a combination, probably, Sarah, by any case.
So Mike, over the aquifer, what do you think is a good acreage size? 1.5?
I would say 1.5. I don't think, I think 2.
Might be, aquifer moves in different directions in different places. You know, we did an intense study when we were looking at, went up and down Route 11, and it clearly flows, as they tell everybody, you know, put your back to the hill and look at the river, and that's the flow of the aquifer.
Right.
So there you're.
The river or Factory Brook, those are discharges.
Right. My question is, there are certain areas, I mean, building a house back 300 feet from the river is probably the best place to put it because all the flow is directly to the discharge of the Tapioga.
But you could just run a pipe right through it.
Well, I used to do that. Chicken farm, what do you?
With the leach though, with the leach field compared to a dry well, that must have impact, you know, must improved the leaching.
It certainly improves it. That's why I think, you know, we're not, the health department isn't thinking about that. They demand everybody have a leach field, which is good, slows everything down, gives it a chance to filter out. But then at the same time, now they, you know, some of these leach fields are pretty big, depending on the soils that you're on, and they insist that you have room for a second complete system. There's nothing that says you can't dig out the one that's there and replace the sand and everything else and just replace it on site. But I think that with leach fields, I don't really understand the need for be any bigger than 1.5 acres. That's my opinion. So, and maybe we should talk to Soil and Water about that. Get their 2 cents.
Absolutely, we need to, yeah. We did talk to Tim Bew. Brandon and I met with Tim Bew. When was it? Last week. Yeah, last Wednesday. And he thought going back to 1 acre or 1.5 acres, and he specifically said, depending on the soil type and would an engineered system might take a little over 1 acre. And maybe that's what he was talking about too, where the drainage was better or worse.
Yeah.
But he agreed that you could dig them out, put new fresh soil in and get by, so you don't need the 2.4 acres today. He did mention too, there were some new processes for the leach fields where they're so much shorter now because of the domes and stuff that are a lot more efficient. So Tim Bew, you know, a licensed engineer that designs a lot of these, he was very confident that, yeah, this could be accomplished to a smaller than 2.4. Now, I'm not going to say he's endorsed 1 acre. He's just saying it could be smaller. So, unfortunately, he was going to come tonight, but he just had a knee replaced or hip. So, I talked to him today, and he said, I'd rather not come. That's fine.
He was home that afternoon.
Yeah, amazing.
He's hardcore.
But he said we could call him if we wanted. I said, we're just going to touch the subject tonight, get it out to the board so everybody can start thinking about it. So in a couple of weeks, we probably need to get Soil and Water involved in planning and whoever else, Tim Bew, so we can really do this the right way. But I'm totally convinced we need to get away from the 2.4 and get it smaller.
Couldn't agree more.
And the state seems to be pushing that too. I mean, more congested, what do they call it? Not congested housing, but clusters, yeah.
Yeah, consolidated, yeah.
What are the different zones? What are the different zones that you, when you first said, like?
So area 1 is
Areas.
around the wellhead, okay? And then beyond that, up through these valleys is area 2. And then the side hills that are feeding into it And it's different for, depending on the slope, but that would be your area threes.
So we might need to have different acreage requirements for areas.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
what you're saying.
And that was what we did way back when we said area two is gonna, we pushed it up to 2 acres, because people were still putting in dry wells and things. But I don't think that's necessary. So,
With the shortage of the homes, the demand for land, because farms need as you just said, every acre they can possibly get.
Yep.
So it's hard for farms to want to start giving up large tracts of land. So I looked at it, 2.4, so call it 5 acres, you got 2 houses. Now we can go to 1 house, now we got 5 houses. Economically, that's better for the town of Homer, for maintaining roads and cost, and better for land use. And most people don't want 2.4, as you said, they don't want to take care of that kind of property anymore.
Now, I'd written a bunch of notes and I left them all home. The other thing I wanted to just bring up, and we gotta figure this out. Back in the old days when I was on this board, we had a minimum frontage, road frontage of 150 feet, but we would allow down to 75. Now we don't even talk about road frontage anymore, and it gets confusing. It's confusing for the planning board sometimes. And so now it's width at the front setback, so you can have a llama trail going back there. And so we just talk about that width there, and that concerns me, especially when you're talking emergency vehicles and stuff like that. I think that we need to be looking once again, at road frontage for building lots. I don't know, we need to go to 150 feet, but I would not want to see it any less than 75 myself, so.
When I drafted this here, I did put 150 feet. Not saying that's right.
Yeah, well, and that's what it was back,
Okay.
48 years ago. And it was for a long time, and then when they rewrote the zoning codes in 2003, I think, I was not on that committee, but that's when they changed everything to width at this front setback in the front of the house. And it's hard for the people on the planning board to understand, oh, wait a minute, I thought this was 150 feet, and here they are, with a 25-foot driveway or whatever, so.
Okay.
Just, we need clarity on that, so.
No, it's good to bring that up, yeah.
You would have to put in a roadway to get that 150 feet, you'd have to put in a roadway to build more houses.
Well,
You're
and
saying-
that's the thing, you get away from these flag-shaped pieces where you've got, just a driveway, and then, this big house back there. I know developers would prefer not to have to build a road and do all that, but then that opens it up for all kinds of development, and why not, if that's what you want. So,
Good points, okay.
all right.
Great. Thoughts from the board?
Is this initiated by the town of Homer? Is this us doing that? Because I heard that the county was looking into the same thing.
When I talked to Trish from the planning, they said they were looking at it too, to bring it back down to a lower.
Okay. So
Lower
we're kind of on the same path.
Yes.
But okay.
She was hoping that she's gonna be able to make it, but something else came up,
She's
or
on vacation. this week.
vacation, so I don't blame her. So that's why we'll have her at another meeting, so most everything tonight, introduce it to everybody, because nobody's really seen this stuff other than email and talking it out. Start jotting notes and your thoughts, and we'll get Tris, and we'll get Soil and Water. Maybe we'll have to have another special meeting to really do it justice, but we gotta do this right. I'm not saying that this gotta be done in a month or 2 months, let's do it right.
Understood.
Other questions? Thoughts?
One last comment, if I'm not interrupting. If our town of Homer is 1.5 acres with approval of the county health department. And we ended up getting that in 2005 or 6 because almost three football fields were 2.4 acres of lot. And it seemed at the time the county was just pushing. And we did get that in there, but I don't think anybody ever took advantage of it. So I'm really glad that the county is actually looking to doing it now. Maybe we can guide them so that we get the desired outcome for everybody at this point in time. That's 20 years ago.
It sounded like Mike said, you said Trish, what was her name? Said that this was actually just a recommendation, it wasn't a mandate after all.
That's the way she made it sound, but at one time it was a mandate, and then she thought it was a recommendation, but she's
Yeah.
new too, so I don't know.
From the planning board standpoint,
We adopted it.
it's pretty well understood that this is what it had to be.
Yeah, that's what the confusing part.
I think every municipality in Cortland County operated
Yeah.
under that.
A lot of the initial drive for the 2.4 came from county health department.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to be able to have well and septic separation and septic field replacement areas that didn't impact the neighbors on any side. That's how that got brought about.
Yeah, they were not only looking at that lot, they were looking at if you had neighbors behind you or
Right.
beside you and all that, just trying to figure that out. So they came up with 2.4.
Which is huge.
Then, of course, if you got city water and city sewer that goes by, you can go down 3/4 of an acre or something, because now it's not an issue.
Right, no, you get on city utilities. It's just,
Right, but that's not very feasible here. I mean, you could go up Route 11 and maybe 281, a little bit of 41, but the majority of our town is gonna have to be the 1 acre. Or acre and a half. Any thoughts from anybody else in the? All right, guys, you good with that, to start giving this some thought? We're going over a lot of information to start thinking about, but. Thanks, Mike, appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Mike.
So I had Steve Cinquanti's driveway on here. He brought it up at our last board meeting. So I put it on here, as I told him we would review it. So looking into some information and stuff. So I'm gonna motion that we table this to our next meeting because there's new information that we're researching. I talked to Steve, he's good with that. We just gotta flush out all the information.
I'll make a second.
Okay, any discussion on that? Okay, those in favor say aye. Opposed? Carried, okay. So that'll be on either 2 weeks from now or the following month. When we get all the information gathered that we needed on that one. Seasonal road, so we got 2 seasonal road. That's number 5. So we got a 5A and, well, I call it 5A and 5B. So we got 2 of them here. One is Mr. Jones put together, and then there's one that our committee put together, Dan and the committee. So we're looking at them side by side, so. Larry, as promised, you wanna go ahead and explain yours, what your thought process was on that?
Sure. What I'm looking for at the end of the day is kind of a clear procedure to be able to take land that is on a seasonal road and know that we can move it onto a maintained road. So again, my intent is not to break the town. My intent is to say that I believe the town wants to grow in some respect or another. Again, that's a big assumption. So if you take that assumption away, then all this kind of goes away. So specifically, the seasonal road issue is probably not a major issue because there's only, as I put it together in this document, there's only 9.2 miles. There's only 2 roads that are over a mile. They both happen to be on the hill that I occupy, which is seasonal Sessions and Max, because everything else is, and Forbes has 0.9, but otherwise it's a pretty minimal problem. The liability of the town is not as big as I think originally thought. My proposal was actually, well, let me back up. My intent in all this is to get away from old town politics and small town politics and things happen because of what your last name is. And, you know, what am I talking about? Well, why did Mead Road get paved? You know, why did the end of Forbes Road get paved when it connects to another seasonal road at that point? So what I'm looking for is just a very clear procedure. And I approached it very similar to what Kevin was talking about, equipment. You know you have to replace equipment, so you put together kind of an equipment fund, and you put so much into it, and when you need a new truck, the money's there to do it. So my proposal was to put together an escrow is probably not the right word. It's an earmark or whatever. Escrow is probably, I viewed it from a business side, not a town
I
side.
can't agree with an escrow.
No, again,
No, I
an
don't.
earmark is probably what we're talking about. An earmark that says, okay, in a certain number of years, we want to have this much money in there, and you just put forth that we're going to contribute to it so much per year and hit to that goal. Once that money is there, the proposal that I had, and yes, we're going to put more work on Kevin, is that if I've got a piece of property that I want to build a house on, and I submit a request for a building permit, the building permit then triggers a request to the highway superintendent to say, what's it going to cost to upgrade the road to that point? And if that cost is less than what's earmarked, issues the building permit, we move forward, all is done. Now, it's probably not that simple, but you get my point. So what I'm looking for, at the very last page, I added that on, is a FSA map. And if you look at the land that I have there, the field that's at the corner of Vern King and Session is labeled as field 18. You have that map in the very end? Didn't that get added to that one?
Is it this one there?
No.
I don't have any on that.
Okay, I sent a new document to, I don't know, Lindsay may have gotten it, but I thought it was in it.
I didn't see it, sorry.
The point is that 16-acre field is a field that for 20 years I have taken people to that field and said, somebody's going to build $1 million house here. It overlooks Scott, it overlooks East Homer. It's just ideal. And we're going to do something tomorrow. It's taken me 20 years to even think about it. But what I'd like to have is a procedure that says, okay, I've got the 16 acres. It happens to be on the end of Sessions Road. The highway superintendent says it's going to be this amount of money to develop. I mean, it's, that end of Sessions Road is about the same as the one in front of Megan's. And it's not getting into a situation where I have to go to the board and say, at your discretion, are you willing to do this? Because then we get into this point of, well, where were you spending the highway money and why isn't the highway money there? And that's not a public debate we want. That needs to be kept as quiet as it can. So that's my whole proposal, is to have a procedure in place that says, if I want to develop a piece of land, that there is a known cost associated with it, there's a known amount of money, and if those two match, we go forward. If they don't, then you have to make the money up somewhere else. I mean, the developer. And I was arguing in there maybe a payment in lieu of taxes or something, because everybody else is going to get the benefit of the road if they approve it. And what we're talking about is going to a maintained road, which is simply, you have to have postal service available, you have to have a bus turnaround, and emergency service. It doesn't argue that it's Taj Mahal up Mead Road or anything else like that. So that's kind of my proposal. I was not comfortable with the idea that it just simply something that the board would decide, because as I said before, probably some decisions made with previous boards were not viewed ideally with this board, and the next board may view things a bit different. And if we've just got a procedure in place, it's very ambiguous, it's not arbitrary, it's not capricious, it's just what it is. Okay, that's my argument.
Okay. Then, so the committee's draft. You want to explain it, Dan, or one of the committee ones? It differs somewhat, but it's not.
Yeah, I mean, largely what it does is it sets forth a procedure for a property owner to request that the road that they would like to build on be converted or suitably improved is the term that the state law uses, so that emergency vehicles can access the property year round is essentially what it is. Because without that, really, there shouldn't be a building permit issued. And it sets forth a bunch of criteria that the board can consider, taking into consideration information from the highway superintendent and other sources. But yeah, so it basically does leave the discretion with the town board, though, like you said. But that's generally what it is in a nutshell.
Okay. So basically what we do now, or what I do as supervisor, I do have pots that I have to spell out. We got one for equipment, one for building maintenance, one for road maintenance, and so on. I think I got 4 for bridges. And at the end of the year, if we have money left over from our budget, divvy it up among the different pots. So we're always building. And because the state will only allow you to, you can't have just a general savings. You can only have 10% of your budget in the general savings. Well, 10% of their budget doesn't go very far when a truck is $400,000 today. Homer's been in a very good financially run for the last 40 years, so we've always had the money in the bank. So when we needed a piece of equipment, it's been budgeted, we could pay for it. We did these remodeling projects. It didn't happen overnight. It's got saved over a number of years so that when we pulled the trigger, the money was in a savings account, didn't affect the general budget. So that's what we need to be doing. The only hard part that I have, but we need our committee to work on that. It's going to be hard in the next few years to say we're going to designate 10% of our surplus or 10% of our budget to put in there. Because for the next 2 years, 3 years, I'm looking at substantial loss in sales tax revenue that I've got to overcome and try to keep our taxes as low as possible. Plus we're going to have an 18 to 19% health insurance increase. We got other increases coming. Property insurance just went up. I think it was 9% or whatever. So you understand what I'm saying. And then try to keep our taxes low. We had an 8% increase last year. I don't know what it's going to look like yet. We just started the budget process. Hopefully it's going to be under that. That's what we're shooting for. We're going to lose a substantial amount this year, next year, and the year after that we're going to lose the biggest amount. So that's the other thing that we're fighting. And I understand what you're saying, and believe me, from my perspective, and I think the board's perspective, we want to be able to accommodate the people because we do want growth. We need the growth to maintain the town of Homer. So we do have to improve these roads. The reason I brought this up to start with, a year ago, with Micron coming, I just wanted to make sure the town of Homer was protected. If 2 or 3 people wanted to build here or here, then all of a sudden our highway department is forced to start upgrading 2 or 3 roads. He's got $500,000 to work with a year. We keep $100,000 in reserve for emergencies and stuff. And he's got 120 lane miles of road to maintain.
Yeah.
So I mean, $500,000 doesn't go a long ways when you're talking $157,000 a mile. Somewhere's in there. So you know what I'm saying? So there's got to be a balance here, and we got to work out this balance.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. I think I'd like to put it back to our committee and let them put their heads together, look at both proposals and see what they come back with. And don't be afraid to talk with Larry a little bit and Dan, and let's see what we can come back with. I mean, again, let's do it right and see what we can come up with. Questions?
I don't live in the town. I don't own any land on any of the seasonal roads, but if we're looking at a 9.2 mile seasonal road as a top out, and we know that we want to have new taxable growth and things of that nature, I'm wondering if the committee could come up with the most obvious increases or the most obvious roads that may request or may be wanting to do that, and maybe add a minimum. I think you mentioned it earlier with the Area 1, Area 2, and Area 3, specifically do it. Is the minimum postal service, fire service, and school bus turnaround? What is the minimum per half mile or mile that it costs us to do that? I don't know that answer.
No, it's a good question. Good question.
If I was actually trying to figure out what we're going to do and what I'm going to say, we need to increase the budget line for this, and I would look at the other end, okay, how much more taxable growth are we going to have? in 0.6 of a mile or half a mile or whatever it is. I'm just wondering if the committee can come up with an idea for that, because if we're doing, let's say we're doing Vern King, okay, and we got a passable of the three beginners, and then somebody else comes in and wants to have more road work done, level 2, level 3, level, I don't know what we would do up until level whatever is asphalt, and I'm dead by then, okay, but that's how we can get started to do that. So if we actually add the minimum, then the next thing, and then see which way the mop flops as far as who wants to put houses up or do whatever, and then I can get a better idea of how much to drop into a capital line.
Mhm.
And then we can look at the payout. That would be my thought. That would ask the committee.
This goes a little bit hand in hand with doing your 1 acre lot, so somebody up on these hilltops on the seasonal roads. Maybe there's gonna be 5 houses in 5 acres, and that makes it really a lot more enticing for the town of Homer to invest in those properties, the roadway, because our taxes have increased. So, all great ideas, comments, more comments from the board, I guess.
Question for Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
In the 9.2 or 9.1 miles, is 100% of those, I'm not on all, don't spend all my time on all these roads, you do. Can all of those roads be upgraded to all-year roads? Like safety-wise, like can they all be made 100%?
I don't know. So that's a question I'll write down right now. I'll give you an answer.
Because I don't think it's just a
I
matter
don't
of
know, because
it being a dirt road, it's just that
every dirt road that we own, the homeowners own to the center of the road. We have up to 3 sticks, 50 feet to maintain the safe flow of traffic. So I'll write that down and I'll discuss it with Mike for further discussion. I don't know the answer to that.
because I think that would be part of Kevin's comment, like,
So your 100% is the minimum
Question.
Yeah.
for the 3.
are there gonna be sections that doesn't matter what you do, this is not safe, we can't do this for whatever reason? Or there's sections, or this wouldn't be too bad, or this wouldn't be too too expensive to get here? Like, is that what you're asking
That's
for
exactly what
zones?
I'm trying to figure out, which way we could.
Yeah.
Or we anticipate easy.
Not to speak off the top of my head, but like Foster Road, the seasonal part of Foster Road is straight up and down.
Yeah, there's gonna be some sections of some roads, there's a reason it's seasonal.
Sessions Hill, there's trees 2 feet in diameter in the ditch. So we have to hire a logging company. I know that there's different sections that are gonna cost more than others. Right off the top
Hey, my road's got a nice shallow grade going down.
That was all before so the question was, can you say that one more time?
Can all of the seasonal roads, or are there sections of the seasonal roads that just cannot become all year safety wise? Now remembering that the reason some of the roads are seasonal is safety. It's because the town, once there's a home there, the town is liable to provide a cleared passageway for emergency vehicles. And like we were discussing at the last meeting, while yes, we live at the top of one that used to be a seasonal road that now has been paved,
Yep.
There's ramifications for us living there, and we understand that, and sometimes we can't get up or down the hill. It's happened a dozen times.
Yep.
And we know that,
Yeah, that's a great
and while we understand that, don't call and complain, it doesn't mean
Yep.
the next person that builds a house there,
Right.
and as soon as there's an emergency and the town can't keep it clear, and a fire truck or an ambulance can't get
Yes.
there, that puts the town in a
Well,
lawsuit.
Yep.
So are there roads?
Yep.
I'd love to see, like, to get to that point, like, are there roads, not just expense, but safety wise, can this happen?
Good
Or
question.
Sure.
Yeah.
can this not happen because it's just, doesn't matter what you do to it, it's just unsafe?
I got that question wrote down, and I'll have something for you here.
I think the committee should include having Kyle be part of those
I
discussions.
think he needs to be a part of these
Yeah,
conversations,
absolutely.
because at the end of the day, he's the one responsible for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, very
So I'll let these 3 figure it out and get with Kyle and we're not shooting for 2 weeks from now, guys. We're not shooting for that. everybody's got a busy schedule, but let's get working on it and get it done, and don't be afraid to talk to Larry and put some of his thoughts. What's that?
I said, I'm happy to meet with you when you need.
Yeah. So,
If you're
Better
building,
to address these things.
if you're building $1 million house up on the hill there, is there a way to do a cost share anyways? So the town's gonna earmark so many dollars.
I didn't say I was gonna build it,
No,
I said
No, if they're gonna build a house like that up on a hill, you know, we just can't break the town. Is there a way to have a cost share?
So I think that's the
system?
question that is probably more of a question for the attorney, is whether you do that. But like, on that particular end of Burn King Road, it's the same hardened all the way across that Burn King Road. So that would actually be a very simple road to increase being maintained.
Because it's location, right? If it's just coming off a paved road already or whatever, and it's just.
That's why
up a
Kevin's saying
right.
like, we need to take the dirt, we need to take the seasonal roads and put them in like, this would
Categories.
be the easiest to upgrade and the cheapest to upgrade. And then this is just never gonna be upgraded or very, very difficult.
Can we
to
have
upgrade.
that?
From one
And
end to
have
the
it in a range.
Can we have that in there so we can say like this section here of whatever road is not habitable, you know, because we can't safely put our workers.
I
in
think
that
you can,
position.
yeah, if that road can't be, or
We don't want-
any road could be upgraded,
It's time and money.
It's time. to
it's time and money. So if we say, no, the town can't do it, but a guy's a multi-billionaire and he wants to do it, let him pay for it.
Right.
I think that's what Kevin,
Exactly.
Yeah.
But some of these hills are pretty, I mean, Moore Road, right by my house, I give these guys a lot of credit. I wouldn't be driving 80,000, I don't even know what these things weigh. It's a scary, I mean-
Foster, the seasonal part of Foster Road is.
oh yeah, that's,
I would never, no one, you wouldn't wanna plow that, you wouldn't wanna try to build that. I'd look at that's a great question.
no, I have Moore Road, but Moore Road is a bear, and I just fear for these guys, like, to put
that's-
these guys in
That's
a
my point, if we're
position.
gonna do it, they have to be able, we are committing to safely maintaining
Right.
them forever.
That's where you need to have either him, or if you need to have an engineer or somebody to say, designate this section as, you know, we can't build here because of the safety factor. So, not just a financial thing, but just.
Kevin, you got any thoughts on that?
I got a question for Dan. So when I see
I
these
don't know where that
homes
is.
getting developed off in the dingweed, the power companies charge the homeowner directly to be able to extend their power line to get to them. Is it possible in municipal law to do the same thing? If I come to you as a homeowner and I wanna build on the back 40, and I know I'm gonna spend $200,000 to get the power to my house, does the town have the ability also to charge the owner to bring that road up to spec? Is that even doable?
Yeah, I believe so. And that's kind of your question with the cost share. I believe the same section of the town law that I've been talking about, 280A, which talks about suitably improved. I think there's a mechanism in there where the town can require a performance bond from a homeowner or someone who's proposing to build a home on a section of road that's not suitably improved. So basically that performance bond or line of credit is there in case they fail to build that section of road on their own. So yeah, I don't see why you couldn't do that. So it's kind of the same idea.
Because I know in other municipalities that I'd served in the past, that was kind of how they treated that.
Mm-hmm.
Most times they would just say, nope. Highway superintendent say, nope.
Yep.
We can't afford it, it's $1 million a mile or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And we can't afford to do that, and therefore you can't build there, and if you do, you're on your own.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
not a maintained road.
And I do know of instances where a property owner has built a home and then foot the entire bill to build the road also. Yeah. So yeah.
But I mean, just to take some of the burden off the town,
Yep.
to me makes sense. Like I
Sure.
say, the power companies don't think anything about it.
Right.
And one of the houses I was, I gave the certificate of occupancy for, they spent $200,000
Yeah.
just for the power.
Yep.
Just to get the power company to bring the electric. Which, if you want to do that, God bless you. But at the same time, the town shouldn't be strapped to carry the whole weight of that thing if now I have a house a half mile up the road that I have to send a school bus to. And or, you know, the whole emergency vehicle and the safety of the roads and all that. So I would ask that the town give that some consideration.
So Kevin, the criteria when you go to issue a building permit, you take into where the location and the road,
Oh, exactly, which is why I've had a couple different people from different towns come before the board just to say, hey, this is what we'd like to do, because I need the board's permission in order to be able to let them do that, because it's my job in the meantime to make sure that all the life safety requirements are met, so that I can get first responders up there all hours of the day, all days of the year. And so, and since all the roads are owned by the town, it's the town board's responsibility to make sure these things will work. Because otherwise I can't, state building code, fire code law is set up such that it will tell me how wide my road needs to be, what material it needs to be made of, turnaround areas every so often, and that sort of thing. But that's all it'll tell me.
Okay.
It doesn't tell me who pays the tab. And most of the time, it's gonna be back to the owner. Because I've got in other townships, I've got developers wanting to split off parcels and do a roadway, or been in issues with private driveways versus private roads. And so the distinction between those comes into play, and I've gotta know all that before I can give them a permit.
okay.
Yeah.
So some people could be disappointed, they come, they buy a piece of land, say, I'll fire it up on one of these back roads, and you won't give them a building permit.
Again, that's, you know, when it comes to these seasonal
And
roads.
I'm just picking on Larry.
Yeah, we need to pick on Larry, but, when it comes to the seasonal roads, that's a big issue for me, because I've gotta follow the fire code.
Yeah, so buyer better do their research too,
Yeah.
some,
Then you'll let somebody build a house half a mile on their own property from a main road? They can't, if they don't maintain the road, their driveway, how are they gonna get to it?
Their driveway has to meet the fire code too,
The
though.
driveway has to
If
be.
they don't, if they don't maintain it or can't get up there, it's gonna be the same situation. I mean, there's houses now that are half a mile up on the mountain, that they can't even, I mean, if
Yeah.
they can't get to it,
That's their problem.
I'm just saying, this
It's not, the town's not liable.
The town's not liable.
As long as the
Yeah.
town can make sure the emergency vehicle gets to the driveway.
If the roadway, the private driveway is designed to meet fire code spec, then they can get a building permit.
Yeah, we had one not too long ago, maybe 2 years ago, where it was a long driveway flag lot, like we
Yeah.
talked about earlier.
Yep.
And Kevin had to make sure that every so many feet, there was a section of driveway that was wide enough for bigger trucks, emergency
Bypass
vehicles to pull over,
first
bypass
responder.
all that, yeah.
Yeah, no, that has to meet.
Yeah,
I've gotta be able to prove that before I can give them a building.
yeah.
right, that's what I was wondering, because
Yeah.
we've got some of them that are getting farther and farther off the road. And, you know what I'm saying, and there's, it don't look like you can get a truck up there
Right.
unless you got, I mean,
And that's why it's a matter of, I work with the town highway people in my different townships, and I work with the fire departments. Because if I'm uncomfortable with it and I don't have proof that they're gonna develop this thing correctly, I bring in the fire department and I bring in the highway department. Because I want everybody to put their eyeballs on this situation, so, before I'll do a permit.
And really, for Larry's circumstance, it would be it's more lucrative for him to subdivide lots almost in order almost, so that it would not be a burden either to a builder who wants to build a house in the middle of a 16-acre field, you know, almost do it as an incremental, so that we don't have a denial of building.
But you'll never
permit.
get that, Brent.
Yeah.
You'll never get that. It's like the Armedio property that Mike was referring to earlier. The quick backstory on that is he went and he subdivided and registered it with the county without planning board approval. Fast forward 25 or 30 years, I get a call from people that are like, I want to build on this lot, and it's literally out in the middle of the field. And I'm like, I can't give you a building permit. Well, I bought a buildable lot. Well, it was never approved. and this all goes back to the fire apparatus, EMS access thing, that if I'm going to parcel off subdivide these parcels, our laws are written such that we have to have the infrastructure in place before I can give out any building permits. So if you buy lot number 7 down the line, I've got to make sure that road is put in place according to town law before I can give you a permit. So we've got the rules set up for that.
Yeah.
So,
The other thing I would add, Mike, is the interplay between a lot of things you've talked about tonight, because when you say we're not gonna put solar in the valley, well then, we're gonna put houses in the valley. Which one would you prefer?
Personally, I'd rather look at a house. I can't stand solar, the looks of it.
Well, at least houses bring taxes in.
And right, solar don't pay taxes, house does. Unless I get Victor's formula.
No, my point is that there's.
I know.
There's interplay between these and it's not.
There's gotta be a place for everything. And I mean, and Mike brought it up. We got how many thousands of acres that could be built on. So there is a place, and there's a place for houses, a place, we just gotta figure it out. The road situation, where stuff can go. And we need to do it. The town's gonna grow, I think, with Micron. Micron's happening. That's not a wishful dream anymore. It is happening. So it's gonna have an impact in our area. It's already starting to.
The other thing, the comment is, because I interact with a few of these people, and Victor probably know, is, they're from New Jersey, they're in the middle of a startup company, they've moved to Homer just because they can work remotely, and their dollars are not the same as our dollars.
Yeah. And we, and let's face it, we have a beautiful village, we have a beautiful town. You hard pressed to find such a beautiful place as we have. Look at the activity on Main Street. There isn't a week that goes by, there isn't some major, that people are gathering, and we got such we got a good thing here, and people want to be part of it. So people are gonna wanna move in and to be able to be part of it. So, any other questions on this one, and then we'll move on to the next. So the committee will get together, and include everybody, I'll let you guys schedule that, but, let's say within 2 months or something, be able to come back together and discuss this in depth again. That sound reasonable? Okay. All right, last, agenda item is a new ZBA board member, and, so my recommendation, supervisor's appointment with approval from the board is Tim Melchek. Tim is here. Kevin and I interviewed him, so I'll let Kevin.
No, actually, I don't know how, Tim's been at these meetings now for about 3 years, and he's very in tune to what's going on, and has expressed an interest in serving on the ZBA board, and understands the commitment and the time, and what goes with it, and the fact that it's adjudicating upon a planning board's decision. And so I would certainly make that a second, or if that was a motion, to appoint Tim Melchek as the new ZBA board member.
Okay, we got a second.
To fill the expiring term through December.
He's filling in, yes, he's filling in Ryan Du Bois's till December. And then if he does good for 3 months, I'll reappoint him for another 5-year term.
All set.
So he'll be on his best behavior for. Any other discussion on that? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Welcome aboard. Just stop down at your convenience to the clerks and they'll get you sworn in. And we'll have some booklets ready for you and get you set up so you can do your online training, because there is a commitment. So the people that don't know, he's got to do 4 hours of online training now, and every year it requires another 4 hours of training. So there is a commitment to it, and we appreciate people stepping up. We're going to have one more open position, so if anybody's interested, we're still looking to get a few names for the ZBA board and for our planning board in case somebody wants to step off. But I do have another position to fill next year. Anything else from the board? Want to discuss anything? Okay, with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.